I have a pretty low bar for American politicians. They're liars, crooked, and self serving. But sometimes even my low expectations are not low enough. And last night's debate definitely revealed that. So we're going to break down what each of the candidates tried to say about Ukraine and just if either of them were right about anything. Let's get into it. So this is a compilation, right? I think I'm required to say it was CNN, but this is just on Ukraine. Well, the question was on Ukraine. Let's just have a listen.
Russia and Ukraine. If we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think...
Okay, so I think what Trump's trying to say here is the casualty numbers are being underreported. This is actually likely true on both sides, right? Both Russia and Ukraine have both probably undercounted their numbers, but the most accurate numbers from what we've seen have actually been the leaked U.S. intelligence estimates that do put the losses at an absolutely eye-popping number. Something in the, I believe it's around 200. I think it's around 100,000 Russians and 30,000 Ukrainians. It might be more than that, but it's a tremendously high casualty conflict.
I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our.
Okay, so Trump is trying to make the case that it sounds like that Biden mismanaged the Afghan withdrawal, that Putin felt encouraged to go in, and that Trump would not have done this. So there's a couple of key factors here. First off, the Afghan withdrawal was executing a Trump negotiated peace deal, or what ended up being just a surrender of the United States to the Taliban. So that was so again, is that though the same thing as the withdrawal? No. It seems like most of the reporting that I've seen has said that the administration would have had an opportunity, for example, to hold Kabul for 30, 60, 90 days and execute a proper withdrawal. Because the Taliban don't really, like, you have to remember, the Taliban, especially given that the U.S. was withdrawing, the Taliban didn't want U.S. forces. They didn't want U.S. allied Afghans. Like, if the United States was willing to take all of the anti-Taliban Afghans and fly them out of the country, the Taliban was like, great, you're solving our problems for us, right? The more important thing is that you have to remember that Trump, while he sounds very confident in what he says, you have to remember that the whole impeachment hearings, if you cut through the political BS, were fundamentally about the fact that President Trump actually withheld congressionally mandated aid to the tune of $400 million to Ukraine. So he was impeding Ukraine's ability to defend itself, right? Impeding this aid that, again, was functioning as a deterrent in part, deterring Putin from invading. Particularly that aid package, I believe, included a number of javelins, anti-tank missiles, things that President Zelensky absolutely needed to defend Ukraine against Russian aggression. So bear in mind that while Trump says these things, the reality is he took a lot of steps to weaken Ukraine's ability to defend itself vis-a-vis Russia.
Country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that...
Okay, Trump's articulating really weird, calling them all beautiful soldiers and saying 38 I think he means Afghans were killed in the VVIED. So he's not exactly using nice language, but his point is actually pretty relevant, right? He's saying that it is a fair criticism to say, listen, the generals who oversaw this Afghan withdrawal, the planners, the Pentagon officials, none of them were publicly admonished or fired. And the Pentagon investigation basically says there was nothing we could have done. We tried our best. But obviously, there's a quote from, I believe it's Tom Ricks, who says that a private who lost a rifle in Afghanistan faced harsher consequences than a general who lost a war. And the fact is that while firing generals willy-nilly is probably not the right call, the ability to hold people accountable and to put the fear of God into folks to say, listen, if I underperform, if I really screw this up, if I don't take a bold choice to ensure that things work out well, then I am going to get fired, right? That sort of push element is actually important. And the fact is that, again, this is not a Joe Biden problem. It's not even a Trump problem. It is a U.S. military problem. The U.S. military, when you reach a certain level of general officer, the institution protects them so much that it is absolutely crazy. You have to be an absolute ghoul to face any kind of professional consequences as a general. So again, a classic politician move to take something that is systemic and baked into the U.S. military that's been a problem for a decade or more, and to blame it on your opposition political figure.
He said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine, never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years.
Okay, you just want to point this out there, guys. Trump just said that he talked to Putin and Putin told him he was going to invade Ukraine. What? When was you going to out that one, guys? That's a massive revelation, because it means that the White House and the Pentagon knew that Putin was planning to invade Ukraine. Remember, Trump left office 2020. So he knew 2 years in advance. That is crazy. Like, what should he have done about it? I don't know. Maybe they did do stuff about it. I don't know. But like the dude just casually dropped that he knew years ahead of time that the Ukraine invasion was happening. Now, again, in case you didn't notice, Trump is articulate. He relative to Biden, he's got a lot of energy. He's not necessarily committed. He's not very truthful. And this could be something where he's just talking shit. Yeah, Putin and I are great friends. He told me all about how he was going to invade Ukraine. Okay, sure, bud.
Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Okay, no terror under my administration at all. That is pretty crazy. List of terrorist attacks. List of terrorist incidents. Let's just see if this is easily verifiable. 1970 to present. Here we go. So he took office. We'll be generous. We'll say 2017. Okay. As you can see, it was actually a daily occurrence. Let's see. Dead. Oh, interesting. Ooh, 28. What was the biggest one? Whoa, 100 plus in Kabul, 2017. Part of the war in Afghanistan. Syria. Car bomb exploded in the Syrian civil war. Taliban going after a Camp Sheehan attack, killing Afghan National Army members. These are just some of the highlights. Libyan civil war. I mean, the Manchester bombing, remember? Ooh, yeah, geez. Yeah, that was, yeah. Oof, that was awful. God, we really memory hold that one. That was crazy. Egypt, Iraq, Afghanistan. Oh, yeah, huh. And another one by the Islamic State. This is 2017. Maybe by 2019 he was doing better. Nope. Lots more in Afghanistan, Nigeria, Mali. Okay, a 0, an arson, a California mosque fire. Okay, but yeah. Sri Lankan bombing. I love how they do the low casualties in green. Like 19 dead is not good. By the way, rocket attacks, 19 killed and 270 wounded, southern Israel. Gaza-Israel clashes in May 2019. So Hamas still quite active in that time frame. Nepal, a murder, assassination, and yeah, so I think it's fair to say that that there was still terrorism, lots of terrorism, lots and lots of terrorism during his administration.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter.
Listen, that right there is not true. Okay, listen, U.S. politicians. That's not even the most malarkey I've heard today from a U.S. politician.
Is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president, they were attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is.
Okay. He's trying to make a point here. I think what he's referring to is the Iranian missile attack on U.S. bases during the Trump administration. Let's see. I think it was. Oh, here we go. Oh, it actually was named creatively Operation Martyr Soleimani. This was in response to the Trump administration's decision to assassinate Iranian General Soleimani. And this was a strike, a large missile strike against the Al-Assad air base in Iraq. This was done in 2022, right? There were initially no casualties, but then, damage was, tonnage, taxiways, parking lots. Right. The Iranians said over 80 American troops were killed, 200 wounded, but that and a hoax Pentagon memo said that many were spread around social media. But in reality, nobody had been killed, and there were only a handful of injuries, which again is not bad, but it is not the same thing. Again, TBI, burn, shrapnel. Given the scale of the attack, it was actually a testament to the U.S. military's force protection that they were able to escape with so few casualties. But I think it is worth pointing out that this is not. There have been since in the Biden administration, there's been around a dozen drone attacks targeting U.S. vessels, U.S. bases. Right, a drone killed U.S. troops in Jordan. Drones and rocket attack that targeted U.S. forces in Iraq. The U.S. responded with strikes, but that didn't really do anything. Drone attacks at U.S. bases. So it's fair to say that even in the last maybe 12 months, there have been a huge spate of drone attacks targeting U.S. bases. So to sit there and say, oh, Trump created this environment is also disingenuous, right? This is something that, regardless of administration, the U.S.'s enemies obviously hit the U.S. where it's vulnerable, and it's most vulnerable at its military bases near near regions like the Middle East. Real quick, guys, if you haven't picked up your Strike gum already, you absolutely should. It's the zero sugar energy drink alternative, 90 milligrams caffeine in every single piece. That's as much as a Red Bull or an Amp Energy. And zero sugar, right? It's available on strikegum.com or on Amazon. You can just search for Strike Gum. It's obviously veteran owned, made in the USA, right, by Liquid Core down in Denver. And we use only natural caffeine, none of the weird lab-grown encapsulated stuff. So if you're interested in picking some up, you absolutely should, either at strikegum.com or on Amazon.
We didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three.
Okay, the airlift, yo, dude, don't manufacture. Like, you got over 100,000 Americans and others out. That is true. But the airlift, we all saw the videos. People running on the tarmac, Afghans just piling in, rando Americans, like Tim Kennedy flew down there and was just driving people to the gate. Like, no, once those Afghans got out, vetting who they really were was its own nightmare. And some of them had no association to the US, to the Afghan government or the US war effort. They were just people who realized that there was a chance they would go to the US, right? And like, this clearly was absolute chaos. It clearly didn't do the vetting that they needed to do. It was a mess from start to finish. And like, to pretend that this went well is kind of annoying.
We found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want.
Okay, I think he means that Trump told Putin, do whatever you want. I don't know if that's true. I guess I could look it up. Like, yeah, look it up, dude. Again, did Trump tell Putin, do whatever you want? Now, again, as we point out, okay, so this says, Trump says he would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell you want to any NATO country that doesn't pay enough. Okay, so that's funny, because if this is worse, this is so much worse, right? And like, Biden's trying to make this point that Trump says it about Ukraine, but like, this is way worse. To be like, we won't defend our NATO allies. Dude, we're bound by treaty to defend NATO allies. They don't have to just, like, them paying is not a requisite. And honestly, most of them are paying a lot more now. Most of the NATO countries have gotten their shit together and are contributing substantively to the NATO defense. They finally woke up as a result of the Russian invasion. Right? But the fact is that what Trump actually said was actually even more egregious, but it wasn't about Ukraine. It was about NATO countries.
And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
Okay. That is accurate. Yeah. The U.S.'s aid, Europe's aid, and of course the Ukrainians, who focused their entire national defense on resisting Russian aggression, were able to stop Russia from taking Kiev. And at the end of the day, like, regardless of what happens now, this has already been a generational level disaster for Russia. Like, to be clear, Russia's entire military, something they've spent the better part of 20 years building into a modern force has been wiped out. It got rebuilt, and that got wiped out. And it got rebuilt again, and that got wiped out. And that's being wiped out. We're on the third Russian army, so to speak. And while Russia has now a strategy that can work, it's not the military, the Russian military that's fighting in Ukraine would not fare well against NATO forces. You know how Russia, for example, no side has air superiority because no side has stealth fighters. But if one of the sides had stealth fighters, like NATO, then it would be a different story. How would you feel? The Russians already the Russians already lose pretty badly against Radio Shack drones with mortars strapped to them. And they are shellacking the Russians. So imagine the skies being owned by F-35s, right? It would be a disaster, all right? And you had F-35s. You could suppress enemy air defenses. You could actually conduct airborne operations. Like this Russian military, whatever Putin has left that he's fighting with, is not going to march across Europe. Like, it just can't do it. I'll never say never. Technology can change, but unless Russia can do a quantum leap forward in terms of their technological innovation, this Russian military could go toe-to-toe with Ukraine equipped with leftover spare parts from Western arsenals. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. I hope you got some value out of this. Again, this debate was just a train wreck. You don't have to be a partisan actor to see that. I try not to be a partisan actor here on this channel, and I hope you guys understand that politicians are politicians, and that's what I hope you guys take away from this. Do your own research. Verify what they say, because they're almost never telling the whole truth. Anyway, that's all I had, guys. Thanks to the Colonel tier members. Thanks to the Lieutenant tier members. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll see you guys. Cheers.